today we're going to look at a Kimura first of all, and we're going to look at a little chain of submissions off of that. So let's first of all just look at the basic Kimura, how we can set it up and how we can finish it, and then we'll look at some other things in a minute. So starting from closed guard position. So for the Kimura, I need to separate his hands from my body. So I need to get his arms off to the floor. So one way that we can do that, nice simple fundamental way, is we're going to raise our hips up so we can pull our hands in underneath, and we're going to pull the hands to the outside. Now once we put the hands down, we can't be waiting here, because of course he's going to want to bring his hands back in pretty quickly, because he knows that putting his hands on the floor is super dangerous for him. So as we lift, we're going to circle to the outside. I'm going to control the hand that I want to control. Then I'm going to sit myself up. If you need to uncross your legs, you can. Just don't put your feet to the floor. So just uncross your legs, but keep your legs like nicely pinched to your partner's body. If you can keep your legs crossed because your body's long enough, then keep your legs crossed. We're going to sit ourselves up, taking this hand over the top, making sure we're above the elbow line here. So we're not too low, above the elbow line, and we're looking to connect onto our own wrist. Like I've seen other coaches sometimes teach with the thumb separated. I prefer this monkey grip. Obviously you can do whatever feels good for you, but I like the monkey grip because it enables me to stay in control, but it also enables me to easily rotate around my partner's wrist and stay in control. So we come over the top, we make the figure 4 lock. As soon as we've got that figure 4 lock, I'm going to take my elbow away from me and I'm going to drop down to my back, trying to keep the hand away from him being able to defend. Now we're going to cover that in just a minute, but we try to keep the hand away if we can, and then we're going to start to move our hips towards the arm that we want to attack. So we open the legs. Again, try not to put your feet on the floor if you can help it. We're going to use our legs off of our partner's body. 1 movement of the hips, 2 movement of the hips, so that we get ourselves onto our side. Come back for me, Richard. Now I'm not saying that if you're 100 kilograms, super strong, you can't like rip that arm off and finish it. But for leverage, especially like for you smaller guys, getting onto your hip and moving out to the side is going to 100% be better. So we move once, move twice, and onto our side. Like a good sort of aiming point is if we put the hand onto the leg. So we pull in, make sure we keep this 90-degree angle at the elbow, and then we're going to turn the whole body and lift the arm up over the top. We don't want to allow him to straighten his arm. Again, we're going to cover that in a minute. We want to keep that 90-degree angle. Don't just use your arms, use the whole body. Some tight shoulders today there, young man. So again, we lift the hips, circle as the arm comes to the side. We set ourselves up over the top of the wrist and drop ourselves back down. Movement of the hip. 1, 2, recross the legs on the far side if you can. Keep that 90-degree bend, and then remember we're using the whole body to pull that over. One more time. Out, sit up, lock, drop, hip out, recross, and then turn the whole body to finish. All right, so let's start off with your basic Kimura from closed guard. 1, 2, 3, let's do it. Okay, so we've gone for the Kimura. So one of the things that you're commonly going to get here is him trying to defend the Kimura. Of course you're going to get that. So he brings his arm in, he grabs hold of the trousers and just makes it difficult for me to rip this away and finish my Kimura. When he does this though, it gives me a nice hip bump option. So I'm going to let go with my hand that's connected to his wrist. I'm going to bring my hand over the top of his wrist. Now, if he's staying really low like he is now, we can do this off of our elbow. So we can just drop this knee down, we can bridge the hips, we can take him over. Hip bump's always going to be more effective if I can come up to the hand, because now I can get my hips higher into it. So if he's hiding the arm and not moving his arm at all, you can either stay on your elbow and we can bridge up over the top, or you come up to your hand, nice high hips, throw your leg up over the top, and we'll take the sweep off of that Kimura. We set up the Kimura, he defends. So I go here, I go to start looking for the Kimura, for the hip bump sweep, but he decides that he's gonna base to make sure that that's not gonna happen. So number one option, because he's now taking his arm away from the body, we can drop the hips, or we can come back onto the Kimura. Lock it in, turn the hips out, and we can finish the Kimura. So again here, he blocks in. If he doesn't let go of his leg, we lift the hips and we go for the hip bump sweep. If he does put his arm out to try and defend the sweep, we take his hand back onto the wrist, make sure he's not able to re-grab underneath, lock in, and finish the Kimura. Or he locks in, I go for my hip bump. As I go for the hip bump, he puts his arm out to base. I continue to overpower with the hips, so that he has to really widen that base. Come back, grab the back of the head, wrap my leg around the back, shoot my leg out, and go for the triangle off of that. So finishing the triangle, we did this a little bit end of last week. We're gonna pull the arm across, grab our shin before we release our legs so that we control his posture. Fall onto the hip, little change of angle, make sure that we go over the ankle, not the toes. And then a little detail, we're gonna turn the foot out so it squeezes in. If you need to as well, we can pull down on the back of the head to really put that in nice and tight. So, we've gone for the Kimura. He locks in. We hold. If he doesn't release, we can lift the hips. Go for our hip bump sweep. Here. If he does release, I drop back down, lock into the wrist, we go back for the Kimura. If he does release, but I'm able to get my hips into him more to make the arm wider, I can create that space between his arm and his legs. Hold onto the back of the head, wrap your leg. This is going to be important because now that's going to enable you to work this leg super light. Pull the leg out, lift the hips, arm goes across, grab the shin, change the angle, lock it in, turn the foot out, squeeze and finish. So let's try to work that all together. Let's start off with our partner grabbing the inside, defend the Kimura. Let's look at hip bump. Let's look at going hip bump back to Kimura. And then let's also see if we can add the hip bump to triangle as well. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3. So the last little bit. So we're gonna combine an extra 2 submissions depending on what, or the way my partner reacts. So I pull out for the Kimura, come up to lock it in, and this time I've managed to start the process of the Kimura. So I've managed to get the arm away, I've started to move my hips out to the side, but Rich is big and strong. We can all see that, right? Big and strong. He starts to straighten his arm. So instead of me fighting to try and pull that back in, I'm gonna feed the arm to my neck, and I'm gonna try to catch it, and I'm gonna pinch. Now when I say feed, like any normal arm bar, I need to try to make sure that his thumb is in the right place. So as this rotates around, I want to rotate it in so that the thumb is going to hit my neck. Then I'm going to use my chin and my shoulder to pinch it in so it's difficult for him to rotate that thumb out. The foot on the far side, I'm going to place that onto the hip so I maintain good distance between me and my partner. The top foot, I'm going to place it onto the near side hip so that I'm able to pinch my knees and isolate at the shoulder. So if you imagine like we've got a bit of wood that we're trying to break in half, we need to support that bit of wood at both ends so that in the middle of the wood we can smash down and break it. That's kind of what we're looking to do here. I'm supporting this side of the wood with my shoulder and neck. I'm supporting this side with my 2 knees pinched together so we leave this in the middle ready to be broken in half. Now, you can do this as you want to do it. Like some people just like to grab with their hands and like pull in. I personally like to bring this top arm over the top and hug my own elbow. So over the top, hug my own elbow, crunch my body, and then I squeeze in for the telephone arm lock. So one more time, we pinch in tight, elbow comes over, hold my own elbow, and then crunch and finish. Now also what will happen sometimes is he will release the thumb and the arm will come free. If this arm comes free, we're going to catch it with this bottom arm, and we're going to lift our hips, and we're going to place our foot behind the back of the neck. Now, actually, two things here. Number one, what I really want to do is I want to turn my knee underneath the elbow, and I want to keep this foot behind the head. But sometimes when I start to make this way up, he starts to posture and pull away. When he starts to posture, instead of going behind the head, I'm going to bring my leg in front of the head, and I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to armbar to the back, excuse me. If I manage to keep his head low with my foot, I'm going to bring my elbow underneath. So I've got a real locked, good pinched armbar, pull in tight, hip in to finish. Sometimes he'll roll, or if I want him to roll, we reach down, grab the foot, pull it towards me, roll him over the body, keep hold of the leg so he doesn't hitchhike, leg over the top, and then finish the corkscrew armbar. So again, come up for the Kimura, we've moved out, got into position. Richard strong, he feeds it into our neck, pinch tight. Now I just need to adjust my legs. So my foot is gonna go onto the hip, foot onto the hip, and pinch. So we've got this all isolated down this one side. Good pinch, elbow over the top. Like I said, you could just like in and finish. I like to get just this tightness, crunch in and finish. He releases, we catch, we start to lift our hips and turn up. If he suddenly realizes there's a problem and he starts to lift his head up in the air, and I can't get myself turned over, we switch, bring the leg here, and we'll kick him off to the back, finish the armbar. If I get myself turned over quick enough, I can finish the armbar, he rolls, catch the leg, so he can't hitchhike, and finish the corkscrew armbar. All right, guys, let's do it. 1, 2, 3, let's go.